I often get questions. It's really hard to talk about the questions I get because they're reflections for me as opportunities presented to declare the certainty of my mind that God is a fact and that the world is illusion based on experiences I've had, which are drawn now from memory of something that occurred in the past. So to talk about it at all is kind of a moot point, but yet in the interests of helping to get this technology and this information out and disseminate to whatever degree I can the nature and the awareness of the universal curriculum as an alternative to the dualistic thinking of human education, I persist in making videos and doing Zoom meetings, and now I've got a whiteboard. It's official. Everything's official when you've got a whiteboard and a rubber and a thing. You're actually a teacher, and it's a funny idea. But I wanted to talk about the dreamer of the dream, because one of the most common questions, and a question that I got yesterday, my brain doesn't do linear stuff too well anymore, but was, how am I the dreamer of the dream when I'm in the dream, right? And it's one of those great Ramana Maharshi type questions, like observe the observer and who is the one asking, who am I, and all of that sort of gobbledygook that you get in spiritual transcendental circles rather than transformative circles. And they're good questions, they are, and they are a pathway to awakening, but awakening is one thing and transforming the mind is the second part of the whole one thing. The mind has to be purified, and in the process of purification, we require a great deal of mind training, which goes along with and is commensurate with whatever experiences, non-linear, non-temporal experiences or spiritual experiences that you have along the way. Magnetic. So salvation is really two things. It's the transformation of the mind, returning it to God as it was given to you, and the experience of God mind, which is what you are, right? So if I go to the whiteboard, here I am in the world, like that, having my experience. I'm quite happy about it for a while, and then all of a sudden it gets too much and I start to not smile so often, and I begin to question, why is my life like this, etc. At which point, because I've asked a question and the external world is the reflection of my own thinking, at which point the universe begins to present me with, it's supposed to be a star, all sorts of other, another star of sorts, all sorts of other ideas, right? And I'll think about them for a while. And then as my life goes on and I keep walking, these ideas present themselves again and again, because somewhere I've asked for something else. Somewhere I've asked, what is the point of my life? Once you ask that, it's not like that the universe is giving you these particular things. They were there all along, these cues and these inferences and these opportunities. They were there all along, but you couldn't see them before because you weren't interested in seeing them. And so all of a sudden you start to pay an interest in them. And it's like when you buy a yellow car, all of a sudden you start seeing yellow cars everywhere. And you start to take notice of these ideas more and more, and you meet people that represent those ideas more and more, or books that you'll read. It just keeps showing up. As long as you keep an open mind. what happens then is your mind begins to become conflicted, because you've grown up, we'll just say this, your mind, you've grown up believing in this. That's a yin yang for anyone who doesn't know. You've got a head full of duality. And when you question reality, what you're questioning is this, is the duality, right? Which is the good and the bad, the right and the wrong, the mine and the yours, the better and the worse, the should and the shouldn't, the healthy and the sick, the rich and the poor. Everything that is of the dualistic thought system of man, okay? You begin to question it because all of these other things that show up, these other ideas, they don't fit into this bracket. Right? They're ideas that are reflecting a more singular perception of life. Let's call it God. Everyone knows what that is. It's not a man in the sky. It's like the Force in Star Wars, the life force, the great is that we are. So these new ideas, these spiritual ideas, don't fit into this yin-yang mindset. And you'll bounce around with them for a while and you'll see, well, they don't fit on this side, and then they also don't fit on this side, and you'll try to fit them in again and again and again. You'll try. But each time you do, you'll have a point of frustration, and you won't realize the frustration, be like, what am I doing wrong? Why am I practicing all this spiritual stuff and nothing's changing? Why is my life fundamentally still the same? But now I'm got all this other pile of spiritual books that I'm trying to balance on my head and make sense of. And no matter how many I read, no matter how many teachers I sit with, it doesn't go in anywhere. It doesn't fit in my pointy little brain, my dualistic yin-yang brain, right? So you have all this. And I know people that have libraries of spiritual books that are still seeking and still looking for answers and still questioning. And they can tell you everything the books say, but have had no experiences, have had no integration of those ideas beyond the conceptual level to bring them to a point where they become experiential, and they will of themselves, because as the mind transforms, not transcends, transforms, what happens is this yin-yang stuff starts to be released. You no longer put faith in it, and you have what's called these moments, these holy instants, right? And where all of a sudden, I don't know what to do, I'm just going to be still and let something else happen, not of my own making. I don't know, I think an exclamation mark should go in there, maybe. I'm going to be still, fuck it, this is all I can do, right? So be still and know that I am God, Jesus says, right? Be still, let the peace of God come upon you. But when you be still, when you train your mind not to listen to what's on that side, the good or the bad, and what's on this side, the yin, like the yin and the yang, the only other activity the mind has or does or actions in a moment of stillness where I refuse to listen to this, I refuse to listen to this, right? And I just leave an empty space here where I don't know what to do. I don't know how to proceed, how to go forward. I'm not going to try and fill it up with my ideas of better or worse or good or should or shouldn't, any of those things. I'm just going to leave that space empty. Okay? And let something else happen. Now that's called faith. All right? So what happens is you have a moment of faith. You realize I've got a problem, I've got a situation, I need this resolved. I can't resolve it with my yin-yang pointy brain because the answer is not there. It's fundamentally existential. You've realized that because you probably read 100 books. Finally, the application of being still, which is what all those books are actually about, dawns on you in that moment of where you give up and you decide, I'm just going to be still. I'm going to give up. I'm going to be still. I'm going to let something else happen, right? Let. L-E-T. I'm going to let something else happen that is not of my own making. If it's not of my own making, then the only other making, because God is everything, it must be of God, right? Therefore, in faith, I'm going to leave this space empty and allow it to be there to be filled up by God. Now, the idea of God, I can sort of tell you it's the force, and God is light, and God is love, and God is spirit and formless, and all this sort of stuff. And your pointy brain that does yin and yang, duality, will just try and work that out what it is in order to make a better defense against it. Which is why all those books are fundamentally pointless, right? The only reason that you're looking into books, teachers, including listening to this video, is to build a better defense against it. The only difference about this video is I'm telling you that's what you're doing. So ultimately, you let go of everything. You enter into that moment, let go of what I'm telling you, what the books are telling you, everything, and have an experience, right? And that's called, let me just simplify things a minute, and we'll go from here. Be still. Okay, now I'm getting to the part, the dream of the dream, so don't rush me. Right, be still. When you be still for a long enough period of time, you have to practice it, right? With mind training, if you're using A Course in Miracles, you've got 365 lessons, one for every day of the year for a whole year. If you've been practicing those lessons with devotion and diligence, etc., you should be beginning to get some kind of grounding in how to bring your mind to a point of stillness by refusing to listen to the yin-yang, which I just rubbed out, that chitty-chatty dualistic sort of thought system, which is all ego. In the individual problem, we'll call it problem X, that you're practicing faith for and having this moment of stillness, that problem, it's not, let's not really call it a problem, that learning opportunity, right, has been coming around again and again and again. I'm going to run out of whiteboard there. In your life, over and over and over and over and over, as a lesson that the universe would have you learn, right? A lesson repeats until it is learned. The one lesson that you're learning here is let go, is letting go. Okay, all of these cycles of human behavior, human interaction, relationships, as they come around again and again and again, when you start to train your mind, you start to become a little bit more familiar with them, and you start to recognize the patterns of your own reactions to particular stimuli, people, situations, and events out in the world. And you'll say to yourself things like, this person's just the same as that person. I keep meeting the same kinds of people. How do I get out of this situation? Or I keep having the same sorts of jobs, or I keep having the same kinds of letdowns in the dating world, or whatever it is, or I'm always broke every time something comes up that I want. I never have enough money. All of these things. The situations are symbols. The situations themselves present you with a factor that you can relate to as an idea of problem. I'll call it problem for a second. As an idea of problem, so you can find a solution. The solution is always going to be God, let go. Right? But you don't know that, and you don't trust that, because God's an unknown factor in your mind. So you tend to look here for answers within the yin and the yang, and don't find them. Or if you do find them, you find that they're unfulfilling, and that the problem keeps coming again and again and again. And the solution that you've found has just been this kind of temporary band-aid over the whole thing. Right? So when you decide to be still, what you're doing is learning the lesson. Okay, so this little black dot there, or blue dot there, let's say that's the trigger. Every time it comes around again, you get triggered. And there it is in your mind's eye, something fundamentally that you have to deal with. And you'll either deny it, push it away, go and get drunk, do whatever you got to do deal with it, or you'll choose to deal with it differently, like I'm telling you, right? So let's just assume you've chosen to be still. Good choice. Be still in an action of letting go, an action of surrender, which is a prayerful action, right? You're doing it specifically so that God, the universe in its infinite wisdom, of which you are a tiny little speck, right? Albert Einstein said, nature abhors a vacuum, right? Fundamentally, when you be still, that space that you're leaving is a vacuum, right? The space you're leaving in your problem solving is a psychological vacuum. Now, you're refusing to fill it up with the yin and the yang, the good and the bad, whatever. And so the only other alternative is the universe, God, whatever, fills it up with peace, right? As you let go of I should just leave these on here. I keep rubbing them out. As you let go of the alternatives that you had to choose from before, that you realize were now no longer worth choosing from. So I see that I keep doing the same thing, getting the same result. Well, the same thing that you've been doing has been based on the way you think about it and the way you perceive the situation, reflecting what it is and who it is you think you are, right? Fundamentally, I don't know that I'm the dreamer of a dream. Fundamentally, I don't know that I am spirit and not the flesh, as Jesus said 2,000 years ago. I believe I am this body and that I am obliged to fulfill its needs and obligations as with other bodies in the way that I've been taught by the world. But nobody gave you a handbook when you were born. No one said this is the way things are. Everyone has just been one long procession of people making it up as they go along after another, writing each other certificates and doctoral qualifications. You know, you're a professor of psychology now and you're qualified to comment on life, despite whether you've had an actual experience of what life is or not. And there's a lot of light. Can you see that light around my head right now? I'm getting very activated. It's like a funny little glow. So the universe, you've surrendered this problem that repeats to the universe. It fills it up. And fundamentally, then the problem is no longer needed to teach you the lesson, right? The lesson doesn't have to repeat, because the whole point of the lesson was to bring your awareness from a sense of being a physical temporal entity to a spiritual one. And by praying to God and being still and all of that, you're deferring to your higher mind, your non-physical mind, and receiving through faith the validation of that in the as the answer to your prayer. Okay, all of a sudden your yin-yang thought system is threatened by something it doesn't fundamentally understand, can't control, can't corrupt. All it can do is try to distract you with more shiny things in the world, right? And we're talking about salvation here, where the world is not your home. Give up the world and follow me. Let's get out of here. No more reincarnation. Thank you. Right? So all of these lessons that it's taken, all these repetitions, right? And then you move on to the next thing, right? All of a sudden there's a little bit of reason, a little bit of light enters the madness of your own dualistic thought system, and you've achieved that sense of peace and sense of higher power through an action of forgiveness, an action of release, an action of letting go, an action of faith, and all of that sort of stuff. And for a moment, you'll remember that. You'll be like, wow, was that just a coincidence, or did that actually happen? Did God hear my prayer now? Right? And that's how it starts. And then you'll be faced with another learning circle, another relationship, and there'll be a trigger there, and hopefully you'll remember, well, wait a minute, last time I left it empty because I refused to solve. I saw that my own problem solving was just me doing the same thing again and again, right? And you'll have another moment, another empty moment. And what happens is, all of a sudden, after you've had an intense period, let's say, of experimenting with your faith as an idea of how to live your life. Oh, that's not right. The scales of this side here, we've got duality, yin and yang, right? And this side here, we've got truth or God. God starts to go up because you're witnessing to the power of your faith and realizing I am supported by a higher power. And this one starts to decrease until a point where you realize faith is no longer required, and there aren't really any more sort of scales of observation, scales of comparison in your mind. There just becomes this resolute recognition that you are supported by the universe, and you learn to trust the process, as people say, trust the process. So, and all of that is for the purposes of, and here we go, awakening from the dream that, here's Australia, terrible job of Australia, New Zealand, and the rest of the world, whatever it looks like over here. Looks like salad, the world's salad. And here's me within the dream, let's say. All of this, faith brings me to an idea of God, and I'll put God up here. And all of those books that I'd read, all of the teachings that I'd learned and everything else that tell me God is formless, God is love, and I'm spirit, not the flesh, begin to shine their light on the nature of the world as being not God's creation. If God creates in its own likeness and God is light, God is formless, God is spirit, then what is form? It's an idea. But all of a sudden, I've been practicing faith, and the world and the ways of the world that I once believed in so resolutely no longer seem to be as important and set in stone to me as they once were. And I find myself in command of my whole way out of my situation, which simply put is to continue in the way that I have discovered, let's say, as an action of faith, as an action of trusting the universe, etc. Nature abhors a vacuum. That's such a good one. To bring me to a point where I've gone as far as I can go with all that, and then what now, Lord? Right? At which point, there's this moment that happens. Right? What now? I trust that I'm supported by the universe. I see there is a higher power. What now? There's nothing in the world for me anymore. You've seen it because you realize that it's not true. You realize that your faith has brought you an element and an understanding of what truth is, because it's relative to the prayers and the attitude that you have towards God, whether you've experienced direct union with God or not. And you start to see that all those answers that you used to look for out there in the world don't contain any joy or any hope or anything anymore. There's something that happens in your heart that is resolutely much more rewarding through living in faith than trying to hold it all together and make it work in your 24/7 life. Right, so you reach this kind of impasse, and what happens is, and I'll just put it in the context where it happened to me. I mean, it may look differently for you, but you fall into this horrible hole of depression, and like all of a sudden you've seen that there's a God above and you're supported by a higher power. Oh, there's my angel, whatever. But you can't find it, right? Because there's another step to go, and that's revelation. You enter into this period. So what happens is you practice miracle mindedness, or you practice faith, same thing, and it brings you to a certain point of conclusion in your own mind. The world I see holds nothing that I truly want, and yet I've gone as far as I can logically comprehend. I mean, what are you going to do? Climb a mountain, go and live 20 years in a cave? That's pointless. That's still externalizing your thing. By now, you're starting to realize that prayer is the key, right? So you fall into this dark night of the soul period, and it can be all of a sudden, or it can be just this deep down thing. But you do it with the understanding that you're supported because you've been practicing faith, and you have that faith and you trust in it, that even though you've reached this kind of impasse, right, that there is still a God there that's looking after you. It's not a test, it's not anything, it's just a process. It's just the way that it goes. Think of it as a rescue effort. It's just how it looks, right? It's like your faith. Imagine if you were in a submarine stuck on the bottom of the ocean. That's my submarine. The motor's broken down. Kaput. I guess there's no smoke on the bottom of the ocean, and you're in here with all your mates, and you can't get to the surface, right? So, and the submarine is an analogy for the world, right? And you're wanting to awaken, you're wanting to get the submarine back to the surface. All of a sudden, 2,000 years ago, Jesus comes down, starts knocking on the hull of the submarine here, saying, hey, this way, follow me, follow my voice, right? And he's made a little escape hatch, and we'll call that salvation, right? In here, you have faith. You have faith you're going to be rescued. You just don't know how it's going to look. You don't know where the escape hatch is. You don't know how it is. You just have to surrender to the fact that, and the acceptance of the fact that the guys rescuing you, the people that are in charge of your rescue, have got it all sorted, right? You just have to learn to be patient and allow it to happen according to how it's going to happen, without trying to force its hand, right? When you let go, when you stop trying, then love automatically flows in. Okay, and it's the same with this. It's the same with the final moment of surrender, or at that point where you become revelation ready because you've been practicing miracle mindedness. And you'll go through the dark night of your soul. You'll find the prayer of your heart that God put there himself. You will, trust me, you will. All right. And despite that, it will be perhaps the most gut-wrenching moment of your life. You'll be glad to get it over and done. Right? It doesn't always happen that way, but the dark night of the soul is called the dark night of the soul for a very good reason. And having gone through it, I would not want to go through it again for all the tea in China. All my suicidal ideas accompanied me down there into that dark, dark place. And by the grace of God alone, and the faith that I had because of the practice I'd been practicing, and the Sermon on the Mount and everything, all the books I'd been reading, it all came together to support me in that dark night of the soul. Which is why you're practicing to be miracle-minded. Okay? Miracle-minded. Let everything, I don't know, I'll let it be a miracle. I don't know how to do, I'll let it be a miracle. Right? Practice that and leave that space open. Right? Let the light in. When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom. Let it be. Just let it be. Be still. Don't try to solve it yourself. Don't try to fix the problem. Don't do anything. Just be still. Let the light in. The light does the work. Okay? Now, I'm getting there. The dreamer of the dream. You awaken from the dream of duality, where you might perceive yourself to be a victim of the world. Perhaps it's quite a common dream, right? You awaken from the dream of duality to the dream, and I'm just going to keep calling it the dream or the illusion, right? To the dream of inner peace, IP, right? And you find that through all your stuff you've been through, the dark night of the soul, miracle mind, you finally have developed a sense of peace and a sense of harmony with your inner world and your outer world. You've brought them together and realized they're the one thing. You've been practicing forgiveness in all your affairs, blah, 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 blah. And you find yourself awake in the dream of the world. There's Australia over there, New Zealand, and all the salad up there, whatever. You find yourself awake in the world, not woke, not Greta Thunberg, none of that stuff. Awake, spiritually awake, right? In the realization that God is true and the world is false. But you still seem to find yourself within the world. This is a period that is defined biblically as in the world, but not of it. In, but not of. Right? You're in the world, but not of it. That's as far as you can go. Right? You've had an experience, you've done your mind training, you've brought yourself to a state of controllable and redeemable inner peace, and you're working on that now, perfecting that, becoming the master of your own mind, your own state of mental health. You're no longer subject to the dictates of having to listen to the voice in your head that just blah, 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 blah all day. And finally, despite that it feels quite weird after eons and eons of listening to that voice in your head, you've got a sense of yourself that is established by the peace of God within you, or the peace of the universe within you, which you are realizing that you are one with. Right? I'm one with all things. I'm within and without is the same thing. The world outside of myself is a symbolic representation of the thoughts I have about myself in form, so I can see where it is through recognizing when my peace of mind is disturbed, that my cycles, remember those things with the triggers, can be addressed and bring myself back to God mind. Okay. Now, the dream in its entirety of the world, the universe, the third dimension, time and space and everything, is an idea in the mind of God. Right? Basically, let's say eternity's up here, and there's God, and there was, if you want to represent it as the fall from grace, or the eviction from the Garden of Eden, whatever, there's a moment of that separation from God, separation from eternity, where all is one, everything's formless, all you've ever known is unconditional love. And there's this point, let's call it a little black spot on the sun today. My teacher, Ted, used to like that song by the band The Police. There's a little black spot on the sun. And you're fixated on the spot. It's like in all of eternity where everything is one, there's this tiny little mad idea. Just rub that out for a second. And I'll use my whiteboard in its entirety to represent formlessness and the eternal realm, where, trust me, you will want to be. Once you experience it, it's natural. You're still you as mind, but not, So, and there's this little black spot and you're fixated on it. The black spot is symbolic of separation. As an idea. Right? The purpose of transforming your mind in the world is to purge yourself of the reflections of that idea that show up in all of your cycles, because that's what they're representing. Learning opportunities are cycles to heal from the idea that I'm separate from the whole, separate from God, by learning to become miracle-minded and thus God-dependent. Did you hear that? You might want to rewind it, right? So every time and I've drawn a pizza here, which is representing all the different relationships, the slices of my, Jesus says in the Course, appointed contacts have been set for you and relationships have been organized for you. Already what's meant to happen is going to happen. You're going to meet these people, situations and events are going to happen to you that you're going to learn how to practice miracle-mindedness with, right? Because this is a rescue effort. We're doing our best to show you through symbols as a formless entity or divine entity or a expression of divinity into your form association through symbols to get you to question reality and try to ask yourself the question, where the hell am I? What is this world? Why is it like this? What am I doing here? Where is God? Is there even a God? What is the meaning of life? Okay. So you heal all these relationships, and relationships are learning tools, right? You heal them, your mind becomes purified, you become at peace. And every time you have a moment of a holy instant where you leave the space empty and allow the answer to be miraculous, you're erasing a little bit of that belief in separation, right? It says in the Course in Miracles, like salvation's not beyond immediate learning, but most people are given a slowly evolving training program so that it becomes overlearned. It becomes the way that you are, as how it is the way that it is in me. Right? So, and that idea of separation, every time you have a healing moment, oh, I heal that bit, oh, I heal that bit, I heal that bit, I heal all these bits in my relationships, and your mind becomes perfectly at peace, right? It no longer operates in a dualistic yin-yang way. It operates as a singularity, one. That's my number one. All things are one. As above, so below. And I'll just put that line there for the above, so below. In eternity, all things are one. On earth, when your mind is purified and you are the dreamer of your dream, here I'm responsible for all things. Everything I see is a reflection of my mind. As a singularity, I have now altruistic perception where everything is one, everything in eternity is one, and all of a sudden, because there's no separation as a state of mind, the above and below paradox, let's say, vanishes, and these things, which are both one, having always been one, are one again, never having been separate. It's kind of kooky, but that's where you have to have the experience, right? All of a sudden, your mind's revelation ready. You have an experience of oneness, and like me, find yourself back using one of these bodies to undergo, because I had my dark night of the soul before my purification, using one of these bodies to undergo the process of purification and heal all the relationships that you have until you bring your mind to a state of perfect peace again. Right, so what happens is, let's say this is your timeline of, you've got 50 lifetimes here. Buddhism teaches it takes you about 14 lifetimes if you're devoted to achieve enlightenment, which is what we're looking for. All right, but every time you heal one of those cycles, right, what you're doing in every lifetime is snipping out that lesson, right? And you snip it out in every lifetime, and your overall lifeline gets shorter, right? Less time, therefore less incarnations. All you're doing is standing here in whatever present awareness you have of yourself in time and space, and refusing to adjust to the alpha and the omega, the beginning and the end, right? Refusing to adjust to time and space, and being still and leaving your mind open and allowing this healing to continue to occur, so that your timeline becomes more and more and more perfected, more and more shorter, or collapsed. You collapse your timeline to the now, to the here and the now, to this present moment awareness, where it becomes a meditative state within and without. And then at the point where you lay the body aside, I feel like we need music. At the point where you lay the body aside and you give up the ghost, which you'll be very happy about. Woo. You're giving up the ghost. At the point you give up the ghost, you'll enter back into the bardo, which is the place where ordinarily you get another incarnation and come back here as a baby. But because of all the purification you've done, you won't have the cellular, genetic, psychological profile in order to manifest another body, right? You become much like your thoughts. And so as an entity, you no longer have the capacity to be reborn. You've achieved enlightenment. Something in your mind has changed, and the psychology of your experience sends you to a whole other level, right, in the journey of your soul, right? You can't come back here because you don't fit in anymore. You've purified yourself of all of that stuff, of that belief in separation, which is why you had to come here in the first place, to have it purified from you, to have it be healed, right? The separation occurred in eternity, not in time and space, right? You've been on this journey for a very, very, very long time. In truth, not at all, but paradox, let's just avoid that for a second. We get to that in its own due time, own due course. Slowly evolving training program, remember. All right, so for me, that looks like being visited on several occasions now by blue people of a higher dimension. I always did actually have the opinion that perhaps there would be, I like my whiteboard, be angels coming down, swing low, sweet chariot, to pick me up. But it turns out that, in fact, It's a little bit more quantum than that. Not that there aren't angels. I mean, I'm absolutely sure that the mind manifests things how you imagine they will be until you actually accept things actually as they are. But it turns out that my next incarnation is going to be these sort of 7 to 8 foot tall, blue, translucent, humanoid, very, very loving, with little orbs at random intervals throughout their body of light. And I'm only, my first experience, I'm only about this big. But anyway, that's personal to me. What it is going to be for you, I don't know. But I've had 3 communications now, and they've all confirmed things at a certain point at when they're meant to, and all that sort of business. So if I hadn't been doing the Course in Miracles, I would have thought I'm going crazy. But everything, when you practice something and the experiences confirm what you've been practicing, I mean, you can't really deny it. So that's how it goes. And awakening from the dream in its entirety, let's say Jacob's ladder, Earth is down here in the 3rd dimension, eternity's up here, let's say. The process of purification is not completed on Earth. It's begun on Earth. You reach a certain level where you no longer believe in it, okay? Then you go up to where the blue people are on this rung of Jacob's ladder. You came down Jacob's ladder to get here, right? Jacob's ladder is an analogy of my Father's house has many mansions, biblical teaching by Jesus, many dimensions to reality. Right, so there's the blue people. I've also had experiences of non-physical entities that mentally made themselves aware, which I am guessing is somewhere up here. And what was the other one? Up here, eternity. I've been back to eternity, or awoken in eternity, let's say. But I'm aware that there are other also, and there's some little side journeys down here as well for past lives and psychic experiences that show you all sorts of things that are going to be relative to your genetic cellular makeup and beliefs about yourself, in order to help liberate you from time and space belief, separation belief, and make your way up to whatever the next thing is. And it's just up from there, up. The journey of the soul. My Father's house has many mansions, and so finally we get there, and where we actually already are right now, dreaming all of this as part of that tiny mad idea, which we let go of the belief in down here, right? Let it go. And then everything in that letting go becomes part of a continual rising up, a continual increase in the vibratory association of your own transforming mind as it makes its return journey to God, right? I love the title of Marianne Williamson's book, Return to Love. That's all we're doing. We're returning to love. And I'll tell you, even here on this next rung up with the experience with the blue people, the amount of love that was imparted, I mean, total love, the experience of my illumination up here, but the amount of love here reflects that perfectly. And like there's no love in the world, you have to discover love within yourself here on this bottom level. Sorry about that, but that's how it is. You think that there's love out in the world, but anyway, I won't get into that. Love is in you. That's it. You got to love yourself first, right? And then you make your way home, right? Hope that was good. I enjoy the whiteboard. I like using the whiteboard. I hope that some of you guys have said to me, oh, I really love the whiteboard, man. I really gel with it and whatever. So there you go. I'll keep it as simple as that. The idea that this is already over, right? If you're a fan of quantum physics or quantum in general, the idea of the separation above and below, form, matter, and consciousness singular reality above. Science has already sort of theorized, and this is I can put it into a more spiritual context, that matter and antimatter should have cancelled themselves out in the Big Bang. None of this should have formulated, right? But in the Course in Miracles, Jesus says clearly, the world was made for you as a place where you could come to undergo. The Big Bang is intentional, and whether it was a Big Bang or not doesn't really matter, but it's just a projection. The world was made for you as a place where you could come to undergo the whole transformative process to return your awareness to the nature of God as formless in all things. And that's what you actually are, dreaming that you're down here. So there's me, let's say, as Christ mind on a cloud. The old preschool idea of heaven on the clouds, the man in the sky. It's not like that at all. Right? Dreaming that I'm down here doing this transformative process, going from yin yang to singular mind, and awakening from this dream. I'm up here dreaming. I am mind, God mind, dreaming that all this is so, and that I'm sitting here making a video about it now, looking back, having a bit of a laugh. That's all it is. It's a tiny mad idea at which the Son of God remembered not to laugh. It's funny stuff. It's a bit of a shock to the system when you first come across it all. You know, those new ideas, they seem so nice at the time. Oh, spiritual, oh, that'd be nice. It's a nice alternative to, you know, what I usually put myself through. But you realize you're putting yourself through spiritual with the same kind of mind you put yourself through everything else with. And it's not until you begin to practice faith and begin to be miracle minded that things actually start to change. You got to put it into practice, right? Don't judge the form, apply the principle. It's all about the principle. All right, love you. Peace.